Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of the Square Circle Podcast. This is year 6, season 6, with your host, Marie Shadows. Now, it is Wrestle Kingdom week. That means that we are getting Stardom, NJPW, AEW, and also CMLL for the week that is the beginning of the year, starting from January 3rd and probably ending around like January 6th. I have yet to hear any excitement for New Year's Dash, which usually happens right after Wrestle Kingdom, but because we're getting Wrestle Dynasty, which I still believe it is a Tony Khan production, just disguised as a New Japan show. And again, I will say that the only reason why I think that is because of the pattern. The pattern is very obvious. The booking is very obvious. The booking are all just one-off dream matches. And nobody could tell me what's going to be happening after those matches. And that's not good for long-term business. That's not good for the investors. That's not good for the wrestlers. That's not good for the fans. It really isn't if you're just going to have dream matches and one-off matches because somebody is very, very impatient in order to build up story and for us to enjoy it and immerse in it and have wonderful conversations, good conversations, no insulting the other, but have some conversations even if you agree to disagree with the person. So we are going to be reacting to the press conference that NJPW holds every single year for Wrestle Kingdom, but now they have to do it for Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. And we are going to be reacting to part 2. I guess this would be part 2 for Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd in a special singles match at Wrestle Dynasty. If you guys have yet to hear me react and break down the previous 2 promos that were to hype up this match and how we got here, please go back into the back catalog or go down into the box below and click on the link in the description or in the pinned comment over on youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast. If you guys are on Spotify, you guys can leave comments and interact with the polls. If you are on Substack, you guys can leave a heart. You can restack the newsletter if you have the app, which, by the way, I encourage everybody to head over to marieshadows.substack.com, sign up for free for extra wrestling content, because there will be some extra wrestling content coming to the newsletter very, very soon. So marieshadows.substack.com. Now, when you do that, also download the app, the Substack app, which is now on Android and iOS stores. And then when you do that, I have access to live streaming. I am going to utilize the live streaming capabilities of Substack. So if you have the app, you will be able to interact with the live stream. I could probably pull you up if you wanted to talk about wrestling with me. I have a lot of fun things planned for all of my channels and brand and ideas. I have a lot of things planned. Nothing is set in stone. As you know, in professional wrestling, things are always subject to change. So yes, this will be a audio reaction only to the press conference. Now, after each gentleman speaks, they do have the Japanese translator. I will let the Japanese translator do their thing. It will be in the video included, but I will be focusing on what each guy is saying. I did watch this ahead of time, so that is a disclaimer. This is not a first-time reaction. This is a second-time reaction, just with deeper thoughts, because the first time that I watched it, I still did not like what was being presented. I still don't understand why or how that we're here. And then I kept thinking about it, and then the little whispers through the grapevine of all the gossip, dirt sheets, and people just sharing the fact that whether confirmed or not confirmed, but Gabriel Kidd's contract is apparently going to be up soon, that it is expiring soon. Now, if you followed me for all 6 years, I do not like to get into any kind of contract conversation when it comes to professional wrestlers. I believe that professional wrestlers should have the privacy of their own contract rather than the dirt sheets that play gossip and tabloids want to just say whatever and don't even retract anything. Don't even double check their sources, triple check their sources. Oh, hey, why don't you ask directly to the wrestler of their contract coming up? Unless the wrestler says it themselves directly and have it on their specific social media platform, I am not believing no dirt sheets and no tabloids. So I do not like talking about contracts at all because it is not our place to be talking about contracts. I think that there should be a really high level of respect and a really high level of privacy. And if you violate that privacy, there should be some consequences to it just because we should not know. If the wrestler wanted to be known so that way they could get some buzz and be like, who's going to give me the biggest amount of bag of money for my life, then they could do that on their own social media platform because they have the reach. You don't need the dirt sheets and tabloids to do that for you because then that's how all the toxicity that we don't want in the wrestling community spreads, misinformation spreads. There's a lot of wildfires that we cannot put out, but if you specifically want to get that buzz, do it on your own social media platform. Do not use the dirt sheets that don't give a shit about you and your career and wherever you want to go, and all they want to do is get the $5 to $6, maybe $15 in their bank account. Not even going to give you a percentage of it because you gave them the info of like, hey, my contract is almost up. So, why don't you spread this word around? You're not even going to get royalties for that. Not even like $1 or $2 to be like, thank you for letting me know about this information that it's never going to get vetted. So what is the point of using them? If you could just do it on your own platform, get your own buzz and become bigger than anything else on the internet. And the companies will throw whatever dollar amount that they will at you and you could take it or leave it or anything like that. But you don't need the dirt sheets to do that. I just wish that wrestlers can start using social media to their advantage by actually using their platforms to get that buzz going for them, get that conversation going for them, and not use the dirt sheets and correct the dirt sheets when they're wrong so that way they can retract what they say. Matt Cardona is a person that pops up in my mind in the way of how he uses social media and how he gets the most buzz and he gets the most money. He barely uses the dirt sheets for that. If you're going to use the dirt sheets, then you're lazy and you don't want to figure out how social media works. Social media works with everybody involved, especially on Twitter, that it is in real time. And there's always somebody checking Twitter the same way there's always somebody watching a YouTube video. It is there all the time. It has access to it. People have access to it 24/7, 7 days a week. And you can utilize the products and features for free to get buzz around you and start telling the world that your contract is up, where should you go, and stuff like that. But for the most part, wrestlers go after the trolls and then cry about toxicity when it is very obvious that you're going after a troll. You're going after a bot that has been paid for and has been coded to say the things that it says, knowing that that's probably not a human behind it. And like I've said many times before in my previous podcast episodes, that most of the time people do not believe in what they say on the internet. It is just far easier to agree with the sheep and assemble with the sheep, while the chameleon on the soap opera box tells them what they should think and say and go do, while behind the scenes, that person really doesn't care. That person is going to sleep very, very soundly at night. I say all this so that way, if a wrestler is listening or a fan is listening, social media is a loud tool because people would just react. And if you figure it out, yeah, it's bad and good. But I say all this because once you become your own PR person, nobody can say, oh, you're bad at this, you're bad at that. And you learn along the way. You can make mistakes. You can learn from the mistakes. And then you just get better at talking on social media or typing on social media if you don't want to talk on social media through like Twitter Spaces or something. But to do it all on your own would be a lot more beneficial than having a gossip tabloid dirt sheet do it for you. And then they can also smear your name later on if they want to be social justice warriors and pretend activists. So this is why if wrestlers get better at their own PR service for their own selves, it will be very beneficial for them rather than trying to source the information to a third party so that way that third party could put it out, you get the buzz, and then companies could reach out to you and be like, hey, we want to offer you X amount of money. No, do it yourself. So that way companies know that you are a serious person that they can rely on, that if they needed you to promote something, you'll promote it rather than going through third party. And you're taking everything that wrestling is seriously, meaning that wrestling has evolved since the days of physical newsletters and physical magazines, even though you could still buy a physical magazine, but it's not going to be mailed to your house back in the day. It's not going to be one of those. People are online in a chronic way. So if you're able to utilize social media and not use the dirt sheets, then that company will see you and have more trust and look at you for more value, because if they needed a thought outside the box, right? If they needed you to think outside the box, they will go to you first and they will be like, hey, since you're so good at social media, here's my plan. What am I missing? How can we get more eyes? How can we get more fans? And then you get to use the expertise of how you utilize social media and see what you can do and just do an A/B testing. And bam, look how much value you gave to the company, because again, wrestling is a team effort. Wrestling is not an I effort. Wrestling is a team effort. But I say all of this because, again, I do not like talking about wrestler contracts unless I talk to the wrestler directly behind closed doors and we have a conversation about it. But even if we did have a conversation about contracts with wrestlers, I mean, like me, if I had a conversation with it, I'm still not going to let nobody know, because it's nobody's business unless I am given permission to do so. Because again, it's not my place to be like such and such and such and gossip about it. But in Gabe case, there was the news floating around that his contract is going to be up. Now, this reaction to this press conference, because I had already seen it and I was thinking deeper on it, I was like, I think they just showed their hand. Because for some reason, wrestling fans, when they saw the headline of Gabe Kidd's contract about to be up, about to expire, they were like, oh, he's going to go to AEW. And I am going to get a little ahead of myself here because, like I said, I already seen this. This gave me the same exact vibe that Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay did in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I have a podcast episode dedicated to that. So I was like, no, I do not want to think that after this, Gabe is going to go to AEW, because then I'm like, yo, I need a wrestler out there to stand on their morals, to stand on their convictions and plant that flag and walk the walk and talk the talk. And Gabe has proven that because he's the breakout star of 2024. It will be very hypocritical of him to talk all this shit that myself and the majority of fans, wherever they are around the world, believe in and can see it. And the obvious is there because we are watching this in real time. I keep saying that. We're watching this in real time, but every other wrestling fan out there, every other AEW sicko out there, every other bot and small account out there wants you to believe that it is not happening, and they're in delusion land. I was about to say Delulu land, but they're either way. They're in Delulu land and they are also delusional. But I need a wrestler to stand on their morals, to stand on their convictions and plant that flag for a couple more years until they decide, hey, I did everything in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Is there a spot for me in AEW? Is there a spot for me in WWE? Like, that's the only time where I'm like, well, that's not a hypocrite. A hypocrite would be that after all this shit talking, there's an open opportunity over in AEW. But then again, what is Gabriel Kidd going to do in AEW? And I was doing so good too. I kept calling him Gabe Kidd. I just accidentally called him Gabriel right now. But, you know, what is he going to do in AEW? There's nothing he's going to do. There's no good story to go against unless he wants to dethrone Moxley. But that Moxley storyline, myself and others can agree, is going nowhere because Moxley thinks that he is in a world of his own, even though he's with other people and he's on planet Earth. He believes that the world is still against him. And it's like, bro, you made it out. You made it out of your horrible situation. And now you should be living life and telling better stories. Anyway, this is not a Jon Moxley podcast episode. The reason why I go so hard for New Japan Pro Wrestling is because I explained it about 2 podcasts ago about my passion for it, because it just brings a different atmosphere and element into the world that we know about professional wrestling. And I am always going to defend New Japan Pro Wrestling when I can and how I can. And I will always talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. I will always push back against others who think that I should just play along and be like, it's kayfabe, they're working you. Like, oh my God, they're working you. Can you not see it? The problem is that there is so much history to unpack with Kenny Omega and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Gabe Kidd is already really starting to get a foothold in making New Japan history. And like I said, he's a breakout star of 2024. Kenny Omega, on the other hand, wants to come back and wants to parent everybody. That is the problem. He wants to parent people. And even in this press conference, there's still not a clear motive as to why he went after Gabe. There is not a clear motive. Yes, Gabe is more violent than anybody else in the past years of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They haven't had that level of intensity and violence, and now it is believable, and what Gabe has done is believable. So is Kenny coming back to try and take away people who want to be violent, who want to have that sense of urgency? I mean, the only other person that like comes close to it is Drilla Maloney. And like when he came on the scene, first of all, in the junior division, that was really violent, and I was like, yes, this is great, because New Japan doesn't really have that. New Japan plays it safe. New Japan plays it as if like you got to have a match. It got to be tradition. It can't go super crazy. It can't go super boring, even though sometimes it does. But it has to be in the ring. It has to be chain wrestling. It has to be hard-hitting style, strong style. It has to be a bunch of these things. But it can't be hardcore. Some of the wrestlers sort of broke out and did some hardcore stuff, like using the tables that never break because they're real tables, using chairs sometimes, but barely doing anything that's hardcore related. And then here comes Gabe. So I don't know what Kenny Omega's motivation is. I don't understand why he wants to come back and why he really truly chose Gabe. Is he afraid that Gabe is gonna change the whole atmosphere of New Japan Pro Wrestling and the identity that I just explained what New Japan was into a very hardcore fest deathmatch kind of thing? Because the other promotions in Japan, they have their little niches of genre when it comes to what kind of matches they present to the world of professional wrestling. We have All Japan, which is probably just straight up matches because I don't really hear much, and Tajiri runs that. We got Pro Wrestling Noah that still has traditional wrestling matches, but on the occasion may have some hardcore matches. There is the deathmatch stuff that happens over in Japan with Onita's promotion, if he's still running that. There's the MMA slash kickboxing slash wrestling fighting promotion that Taka has. There is the DDT. I was going to say the other promotion. I'm so sorry. There is DDT Pro that has a combination of regular matches and then the what the fuck did I just watch matches. So there's a bunch of different style and niches that other wrestling companies in Japan have. And they all serve different types of audiences rather than trying to pack all of those niche gimmick matches into one company. That's why I'm like, what is truly the reason for Kenny Omega going after Gabe Kidd? We have to think a little bit deeper about this. There is one particular fan that always comments on my videos pertaining to Kenny Omega and Gabe Kidd. You got to think deeper if you're going to leave me a message. You really do. Because it's not just surface level. It's a lot of questioning, especially if you followed Kenny Omega's career and everything that he does. I'm not saying that we should disregard Kenny's career in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but it should be acknowledged how he got kicked out of New Japan Pro Wrestling and got kicked out of Bullet Club. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, well, now 6 years later now, wants to come back and be like, Gabe, you're going to be my first opponent because I don't know. It's just because he said in the other promo that you've destroyed the thing that I created. Well, last I checked, Gabe is not the leader of Bullet Club War Dogs. If anything, I guess we could blame Evil for... Do I want to blame Evil? Yeah, because I don't really know where I'm going with that. Like, we could blame Evil. Like, there's two sets of Bullet Club factions within Bullet Club. There's House of Torture, and then there's Bullet Club War Dogs. These guys don't really, like, interact much, but you know that some shit is about to go down. But Kenny singles out Gabe Kidd. Why is that? Because Gabe is more violent than Kenny Omega, but Kenny Omega can get violent if he wants to. I mean, he just spams the V trigger in his later years so many times that I'm like, oh my God, you're such a spam machine. But other than that, like, I just don't get it. I really don't. And looking at this, there's the promos, and then after the promos, there's nothing. And then we have this. And even with this, it's like, I don't get it. But my main issue is that Kenny Omega wants to parent people. Kenny Omega wants to be that dad that reminds all the kids that are now under the New Japan Pro Wrestling banner that he built it. That he's like, I built it, you better remember that. Without me, this wouldn't be here. And it's like, stop trying to parent people. Let people acknowledge that you built it and let them be humble that you built it. And let them acknowledge that they do have a platform to over the head over it for no good reason to bring it up. It's sort of like, what's the motivation? And I'm even having a hard time, I should say. I'm even having a hard time being like, I can't get behind Kenny Omega and what he says. Because again, this is the same kind of vibe I get with Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. Same kind of vibe right here. Like, I don't get it. So by saying that with the same vibe, because I have to still react to a 10-minute video, by saying that, it's because as soon as Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay was done in New Japan, they did it again in Canada where they switched freaking wrestler roles, baby face to face and face. Nope, I'm sorry. That was a little too fast. Face to heel, heel to face. So I just feel like this is gonna be the same way. It's gonna be the same way just because of how this ended and stuff like that. Let me start reacting to this. So this is how the audio reaction is gonna go. It's very similar to the previous one where basically you're just gonna hear the audio. I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna talk about it and then, we'll go from there. Also, before we do that, I would like to mention that if Gabe Kidd started to do V triggers and started to do the one-winged angel and started to mock Kenny Omega, then I would not have a problem with Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd. But Gabe Kidd has not done that. Nobody has showed me that he has tried to mock Kenny Omega. The only thing that Gabe didn't like was how Kenny referred to him as a different kind of name and not put any kind of respect on the name Gabe Kidd. So, like I said, if Gabe was ever trying to imitate him, then I would be like on board with this. I'll be like, it will work. But with all the information that we get, because these promos are very, very important, if they're not going to have backstage segments where they interact with each other leading up to this, and if they're not going to have maybe tag matches in between this leading up to this, the promo battles are very, very, very important to let the fans know everything so we can be hyped for it. All right, let's go.
Let's talk man to man now. No more disrespect, none of that shit. Let's talk man to man.
Yeah, sure, Greg. Go ahead.
Now you hear that, right? Where Kenny is just sighing and being like, all right, Greg, let's do that. That's very disrespectful. That is super disrespectful that I too would be upset. It's like, bro, do you want to be here or not? You're the one that ran to the press. You're the one that made the match. You're the one that, made it bigger than what it is. Like, do you not want to be here?
You can do that all you want, mate. Listen here. I don't need to shout. I could kill you right now. I don't even need to jump over there and attack you. I could kill you in an instant with one body shot.
Now, just so that way the internet knows and YouTube knows and Spotify knows that this is professional wrestling, and Gabe is saying this because it's his character. He is a madman, and that's all it is. This is professional wrestling, where professional wrestling is staged. Also, the body language of Kenny Omega is like he's not believing what Gabe says, but given Gabe's track record of the matches he's had, he's won most, I believe. But even if he didn't win, the guy is always crawling or hurt or something. Like, Gabe walks the walk.
But what it really comes down to is this. I didn't spend a year and a half of my life in the New Japan dojo during a global pandemic. Nearly kill myself twice for some pube hair billionaire bitch and a snot-nosed rat who can't let go of his past to come in this shit and disrespect us, undermine us, treat us like shit. What it comes down to is this, Tyson. After Sunday, you know it. I know it. Every single one of these people and everyone watching from home knows it. Shinihon Pro Res, Ichiban motherfucker, Ijo.
Okay, so a couple of things. It is a true story of what Gabe said. So again, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else on social media, that is something that he went through twice and definitely was put into a mental hospital to sort of calm down a bit, relax, get back to normal. And this was during the pandemic. The thing that I don't really like as much is that they keep using the pandemic. And while, yes, the pandemic affected all of us, even here in the United States, it was the exact same way that Will Ospreay being so passionate about New Japan Pro Wrestling and how the pandemic was messing with him too. And he used it in his promo during the press conference against Kenny Omega, that this is why it feels like it's the same kind of vibe. And this is where the nervousness sets in. Because yes, while Gabe is using that to sort of paint the picture of what he's going to do and what he's thinking and where he's coming from with this Madman thing. And then also when Kenny gets to speak, it sort of like shows his hand a little bit. But I don't want to be the one to be like, oh yeah, it's going to happen. Like, no, I really don't want it to happen if Gabe ever decides to go over to AEW just right after, because if he sees it, whether or not he's reading online stuff or anything like that, he can see it because he's working. He's right there in the front lines. And I have enough knowledge, both insider and just experience working in wrestling, to be like, yes, I could definitely identify that such and such company is getting undermined by idiots. I've been around it on the indie scene and looking at the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I've seen where other wrestlers will try to get all cozy with the promoters, and then they start booking the show, and then they start having their friends win wrestling belts while others have been putting in the work longer than they have, and then get pushed to the side. Or those wrestler friends who start book themselves to be champions, and the promoter allows them to do it. Like, we have experience in this to see where certain things fall off, where certain things tend to be dangerous. And for someone like me to, I guess, sound the alarm for New Japan Pro Wrestling and say how the partnership with AEW is bad, and then to have people question me or push back on me rather than listening, because most people respond to respond and not respond to listen, or listening to respond, I should say. It's the fact of, like, you have experts in the industry telling you that what is happening in real time is true. So that's why part of me is like, why would Gabe again say everything that is true, everything that is obvious, everything that we are watching in real time, and my coverage of New Japan Pro Wrestling and the AEW partnership and how bad it is? Why would he again repeat it in this press conference if it wasn't true, if he wanted to like go off and talk about something different? And some people might be like, well, that's the point. They want to make AEW the heels. No, we're not turning a company babyface or heel. The company can't turn babyface or heel. It has to be the wrestler. The company is not a live being. The company is a company. A company can fail. A company can succeed. A company is material, but is not a living, breathing organism where it has a will of its own. It could be like, oh, I'm gonna be babyface today, guys. Guys, I need you guys to become my street team and tell the world to buy tickets. Or the company is not going to be a heel and be like, I don't like you guys at all. Don't you dare tell people to buy tickets. Like, what? Like, I know that might be a stupid kind of thing to think about, but trust me, it's out there. Somebody does say that they're trying to turn AEW heel. Like, you can't do that. It's not a human being at all. So, you know, this is what I just don't get.
Gabe, you're right. Time for jokes are over. I spent over a year of my life recovering from a career-threatening illness, a life-threatening illness. And I chose to come back here. I chose to come back here to face you. And whether that becomes a match or a fight, it doesn't matter. The reason why I came back is because of exactly what you said. This place is the best for professional wrestling. You know it. I know it. The only difference is when things got tough for me in New Japan, I rose up. I stood up. I took control. And what the fuck did you do, Gabe? You begged for someone to help you, for someone to save you. I'm losing my mind because I'm a madman. You ran away because you're weak. They locked you away because you were afraid. And now, the one who made the biggest difference, the biggest change in this entire company, the one that saved you all, the reason why you have a check to cash, The reason why there even is a Wrestle Dynasty is because of me.
All right, I need to stop because again, that shit is getting me upset because it really makes no sense to try to compare what hardships Kenny went through when he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling for the 10 years that he was there, building a legacy, and they put it on his back because they banked on him and they gave him a chance. During his time in New Japan Pro Wrestling, he never experienced a pandemic. We all experienced a pandemic in 2020, 2021. It's the oddest years or year ever to ever experience that as a human being living on Earth, and to just diminish what Gabe Kidd went through, diminish that he went crazy because Japan has stricter laws than America. Japan was overly cautious with their rules and interactions and what they were going to do and how they were going to oversee things. So it's very plausible that Gabe Kidd went crazy. Other people went crazy. But then again, in Japanese culture, and I'm sorry if you're a Japanese fan and you're listening to this, it's already crazy. There are aspects of Japanese culture that do drive people crazy and they don't want to be here on Earth anymore, and sometimes they may not get the help. So because Gabriel Kidd decided to get the help, he's all of a sudden weak, when we all say that if you need help in any capacity, just reach out because it could change your life and it could change anything. Now, yes, there are people that push through the bullshit. There are people that decide to rise up and become that leader and take on all that responsibility. But then again, in the same breath, they'll turn around and hit you with that, oh, but nobody checked up on me. And sure, Kenny Omega was able to do that with New Japan Pro Wrestling by carrying it on his back and creating it what it is today. However, you did not have a global pandemic right there and then during the time that you were in the spot that you were in. So to try and diminish somebody for actually seeking out help to still be here and have this match and create a new legacy for himself and a new chance at life, you're just gonna tear him down and be like, oh, but you're not as strong as me. And the only reason why he's cashing checks is because of me. So that means that this event is an AEW event and this is a Tony Khan production event because Tony Khan is the only one that has money for days and has been giving out checks and bags and whatever dollar amount the wrestler wants. So it is confirmed now that this is a Tony Khan production, and I was always right about that for Wrestle Dynasty. But what I don't like is the smugness. And again, it's that same vibe between Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. The same fucking vibe, man. Like, there has to be other things to talk about. And just because Kenny Omega said that his reason for coming back to New Japan Pro Wrestling is because this is where the best wrestle, and I can't believe I just fucking said the tagline, but New Japan Pro Wrestling has the best wrestling around. I need more, sir, because that can't just be the running line for wherever you go. Like, let's just say after his AEW contract is up and he no longer wants to be an EVP and he goes to WWE, is he going to be like, I came to WWE for one reason and one reason only. And Cody, you said it right. It's because I want to wrestle the best and WWE has the best wrestling. Is he going to continue to use that line wherever he goes? Like, that can't be it. There has to be a bigger agenda here for Kenny Omega to come back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Kenny Omega is a wrestler, even though he's been, like, I guess, brawling for the last couple years, if you want to consider that, if you want to consider him spamming the V-trigger. But all in all, he's a wrestler. And he's going after Gabe Kidd that wrestles, well, not really wrestles, fights like Stone Cold Steve Austin. What? What are we doing here? Like, if you wanted to come back and fight the best, you would go and fight Zack Sabre Jr. You would go and fight TJP. You would go and fight David Finlay. You will go and fight Tsuji. You will go and fight Shingo. You will go and fight anybody else. But Gabe Kidd is a fighter. He's a brawler. He's gonna go and beat you the fuck down. Like, why are you picking him if you say that this is where the best wrestle? God, that's the second time I said that. No, this is not no promotion for AEW for that. Damn. But you get what I mean, right? Like I had to stop it there because that stuff just gets me annoyed. It's like, bro, what are you taking credit for? Like, we know you built New Japan Pro Wrestling. We know you helped it out. And then because you and the Young Bucks went into business for yourself, you got kicked out of Bullet Club, and then you got kicked out of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now you guys come crawling back because management changed. Because you're still friends with Tanahashi, and being friends is not a bad thing, but damn, just acknowledge the shit that happened. Like, this whole entire press conference would have been better if Gabe really would have dug into the fact that Kenny and the Young Bucks are friends and they're getting an easy pass back and they don't have to do shit, and they're messing up his career trajectory or something like that. Like, it would be a lot more beneficial to bring that stuff up. But let's keep going.
And you're looking at me like I'm the traitor? You're looking at me like I did something wrong?
You did do something wrong. You came back on a friend ticket and you just called your fucking shot because you cried to the press. And also, your boss decided to buy the New Japan wrestlers and decided to undermine everybody and decided to pick and choose who gets to go over to AEW and who gets to be a jobber at AEW when they are a New Japan star. And then when they're an AEW star going over to a New Japan show, they're like a fucking superstar. So yes, Kenny, you are the traitor. And yes, you did something wrong. But in the history of Kenny Omega, he's not going to acknowledge that. The character of Kenny Omega is not going to acknowledge that. Maybe Tyson will do that, which I don't really like to use personal names here, but Gabe brought it up. But I'm just showing you the whole differences of it. Like, Kenny Omega won't acknowledge it. Kenny Omega won't acknowledge any kind of fault that AEW has had or Tony Khan has had, or even their AEW Fight Forever game is a total disaster and won't even acknowledge the fault in that. So yes, he's a traitor and he did a lot of things wrong, and being an EVP doesn't excuse the faults either. Being an EVP doesn't excuse, any excuses that he gives. Because you're an EVP, you have responsibility. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. It doesn't excuse you from any responsibility just because you are an EVP and you get to do whatever you want.
I'm giving you the opportunity of a lifetime. Now we can wrestle.
What opportunity when you are damaged goods? I'm getting ahead of myself, but you even say it in the promo that, like, you had that life-threatening illness and you don't know if your stomach is 100%, but you're giving Gabe an opportunity. What opportunity, sir? He's been a breakout star for 2024 without your help, without your guidance, without you being a mentor. Like, you just popped up back on the scene. This is why I don't understand and what wrestling fans like to argue with me. What opportunity, especially when 5 years has passed, Kenny Omega has not acknowledged Bullet Club at all. Nobody talks about Bullet Club. He doesn't even bring it up in, like, maybe some social media posts or whatever, being like, hey, I remember a time in Bullet Club, blah, 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 blah. Hey, do you guys remember this? There's no consistency in talking about Bullet Club. So what opportunity are you giving him? Are you giving him the opportunity to face you as an AEW wrestler by way of New Japan Pro Wrestling and by way of Bullet Club? Or are you just giving him an opportunity because your name, Kenny Omega, still somewhat holds some type of weight, but not full type of weight anymore? Like, what opportunity?
And show the world the style and spirit of New Japan Pro Wrestling, or we can go out there and we can fight. Now, I know what you think happened in Osaka was something in your favor, but Gabe, whether we stand up, whether we're on the ground, it's always in my favor. I don't know how my stomach is. I don't know if I'm going to survive this match. I don't know what kind of career I'm going to have once this match is done. But if this is the last match that I ever have, then I'm proud to have had it in this company.
I think that's stupid to say. I really do. I really think so. Man, you're not gonna have your last match in this company, dude. Like, you are already booked on AEW Dynamite for January 8th, which was really, really bad that they released that, because right after this, it just means that this match is not gonna mean shit. You're not gonna be there for the tour. You're not gonna be there to sort of stretch this out. Who knows if Tony Khan is going to have Gabe Kidd go back to AEW. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Ring of Honor, because that's how good Gabe is. Tony Khan is like, oh, you don't fit on AEW. We're just going to send you to Ring of Honor, a thing that nobody watches. Nobody really watches it behind the paywall. Like, it's doing horrible. So, like, man, I don't think this is going to be Kenny's last match at all. Like,
you need to understand is that this company exists on my name and on my name alone. And the reason why they've trusted filth like you from other countries is because they thought, yes, the Gaijin savior, Kenny Omega. There must be more like him somewhere.
All right, listening to that again, Kenny Omega came into New Japan Pro Wrestling after there were Gaijin already there throughout the years of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Is this guy really going to erase all of the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling interacting with Gaijin? Really? Their little mini partnership with WCW, when they sent WCW guys over to New Japan Pro Wrestling, when Hulk Hogan wrestled in New Japan Pro Wrestling, when Sting was over there, where Stan Hansen, people love Stan Hansen, he was over there in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then here comes the first iteration of Bullet Club under the name of Prince Devitt, Tama Tonga, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows. All those guys were picked up because New Japan Pro Wrestling understands that it can't just be all Japanese wrestlers. That there has to be a mix between Japanese wrestlers, American wrestlers, any other wrestler around the world to showcase what they have, because the more culture you present to the Japanese culture, the more they'll be accepting of others. And also just more entertainment, more fun. It's a more roundabout style, and it creates a really good economic system of support and wanting to get these guys back, and the money is there, and everything smoothly just runs together. So for him to say that New Japan Pro Wrestling is solely on his back and build off of his name to give the Gaijin the opportunity, Man, you're so full of it. So full of it. Can't even acknowledge the past. Won't even acknowledge AJ Styles. Won't even acknowledge Finn Balor. If anything, New Japan Pro Wrestling took a chance on American wrestlers, took a chance on foreigners, and it paid off. Kenny Omega just happened to be in the right place at the right time, at the right peak in professional wrestling. But, it's Kenny Omega. His character is never going to acknowledge anything for the past. It's always been about him. And that's where I say that wrestling is a team effort and not an I effort.
Hell, we found Jay White. We found Will Ospreay. You think you're one of them? You think you're in the same league?
This is how you know Kenny Omega never prepared for Gabriel Kidd. And I'm going to say Gabriel Kidd because that has a better oomph to it, but he never prepared for Gabe Kidd. He doesn't know anything about Gabe Kidd at all. This is what happens when wrestlers don't do their research. Gabe Kidd says fuck off to everybody. Gabe Kidd does not compare himself to Ospreay, does not compare himself to Jay White. If anything, if David Finlay was sitting there, then yeah, that line would be okay. But for the most part, Gabe Kidd does not give a fuck about anybody else but himself, but he understands that it is a team effort. And he never said, hey, I want to be the next Will Ospreay. Hey, I want to be the next Jay White. No, Gabe Kidd knows that he wants to be the only Gabe Kidd in the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He never said anything about trying to one-up the other wrestlers that left for greener pastures, even though it was turning out not to be greener pastures. So, like, Kenny, do some research on your opponent, man.
Prove it to me at the Dome. Fucking prove it.
Now they're asking Gabe for a rebuttal. Gabe doesn't really give a rebuttal. He's just looking straight at Kenny, and this is where I thought that was a really bad choice, but It is what it is.
Since I'm the only pro here.
And even little jabs like that, like, dude, you know this guy is staring a hole into your soul, and you're gonna poke the bear. And then when the bear gets unleashed, you're gonna cry to the press. It has nothing to do about professionalism. If he doesn't want a rebuttal, he doesn't want a rebuttal. Or, you know, yeah, I think that's about it. It was more about like, hey, do you want to give a rebuttal to that? But if he doesn't want a rebuttal, he doesn't have to rebuttal.
This is your last chance, Gabe.
What last chance? If you are a Kenny Omega fan, and if you are not delusional, and if you're not going to glaze him, please let me know in the comments. What last chance? What does that mean? Gabe Kidd never sought out this match. Kenny Omega sought out this match. If anything, this will be Kenny Omega's last chance.
Clearly, professionalism isn't in your vocabulary. Look at the way you're dressed. Look like a bum. Homeless. Is this?
That is such high school shit. Like, sometimes you just want to be comfortable, and that's what he's going to be dressing as. Not everyone likes suits, but Gabe is on a whole nother thought pattern right now. So those are just really bad type of insults. I mean, Kenny didn't say that about Brody King coming in, having that Parker like jacket on when he was talking with David Finlay. Like, not everyone dresses in a suit nowadays.
Symbol of Shinhan Progress? Let's hope not. The fans know what's good for their company. They'll be backing me. Last chance, Gabe. Let's take a nice little picture for the people. Shake my hand. And on the 5th, it's your one and only chance to feel the Kenny Omega touch.
And after that, they take a picture, but instead of shaking Kenny's hand, you have Gabe Kidd giving him the finger and walking away, and that ends that. This whole entire thing is like so convoluted. There's no consistency. There's no... One person is telling the truth. The other person still wants to play kayfabe and still wants to be like, well, this is what I did for you, but you are ungrateful. Like, trying to parent Gabe Kidd. And again, what last chance? Kenny makes it sound as if him versus Gabe is part 3 in their series or part 4 in their series. But this is just the beginning of nothing. Nothing is going to come from this. Also, I do not think that they are going to turn Gabe Kidd into a babyface. For everybody out there that is a fan and doesn't want to think above a fan or think a little bit deeper, it would not serve anybody in Bullet Club War Dogs if we were to have an early civil war where Gabe Kidd goes against David Finlay. Just because David Finlay picked up on the notion of New Japan starting this and pushing it by questioning David Finlay with the question of Gabriel Kidd and his antics and all this kind of stuff. David Finlay knows. David Finlay is smart. But for some reason, fans want Gabe to turn face. For what? He just started being the anti-hero, the soldier that New Japan Pro Wrestling needs right now. If he's a babyface, he's not going to be able to accomplish that. If he's a babyface, he's not going to be able to accomplish the things that he sets out to do as a character in front of the screen and terrorizing the fans, and the fans come and see him and the fans want to buy his merch. Why do you want to turn him into a babyface so fast? This is also the other problem that AEW has, is that everybody week to week goes from babyface to heel, and then from heel to babyface. And then after 2 weeks of the shortest program ever across all days of the promotions of Dynamite, a once now dormant Rampage, and Collision, that the feud ends, and then a month later, the person you just feuded with is like, I'm going to be on your side. I'm going to protect you from the other women beating you up. There's so much stuff that happens that there is nothing concrete anymore to where you can fully enjoy the ride of the wrestling stories that AEW is supposedly giving us and New Japan Pro Wrestling is supposedly giving us. Wrestling needs to slow down again, the same way that matches need to slow down again. Storytelling needs to be on point. Storytelling needs to be consistent. It can't just always be dream matches and one-off matches, and the AEW guys are better than the New Japan guys, because like I said, we see this in real time. And if I keep repeating it, it is true. If the NJPW wrestlers say the same thing, it is true. Open up your eyes, open up your ears. Just because I don't deal in gossip and tabloids on my brand and on my show does not mean that I don't know anything. I'm actually on the front lines of professional wrestling, meaning that I have the work experience, I have the insider knowledge, and I will share it whenever I get the chance to. That's more than all of the dirt sheets and gossip mills on the internet, but it's easier to follow them when you're desperate to be a part of something rather than think about it individually and then seek out experts and ask them questions and get some knowledge and maybe just have a nice conversation about wrestling and how wrestling can improve and how AEW can improve and how New Japan Pro Wrestling can improve and how wrestlers can stick to the script. Even if it's not scripted, you know that the foundation is someone has to be a babyface, someone has to be a heel. In this case, Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd. Gabe is that anti-hero. He is the heel coming in. Kenny Omega should be the babyface and explain to us like something else other than I came back to New Japan Pro Wrestling because this is where the best wrestle, and that's the third time I said that. Can my brain not think of any other alternatives at the moment? I don't think it can, but you get what I mean. I am really unsure about the outcome. I really want Gabe Kidd to win against Kenny Omega because it would make no sense for Kenny to have a victory over Gabe and for someone to just tell me, oh, well, that'll make the chase more. There's money in it. There's no money in this. There's no money in this. Kenny Omega is damaged goods. Kenny Omega is not the same Kenny Omega. He's not the cleaner from years ago. If somehow we preserved the cleaner from years ago and this current day Kenny Omega never got that life-threatening illness and he was still the cleaner from years ago, then yes, I would say that there is money in this because there's money in the cleaner and you could definitely see it. The proof is there. But we're dealing with 2025 Kenny and a 2025 Gabe Kidd who's in the early stages of his career. Why would you want Gabe to lose when he's been on a hot streak and then nothing's going to come from it? Like, it's not really going to elevate him. He needs new people to elevate him. He needs new stories to elevate him. Now, I said in the last one that if Finn Balor had the opportunity to come back to New Japan Pro Wrestling and wanted to test the best and wanted to see if Gabe Kidd is actually a really good fit for Bullet Club and does he embody what Bullet Club is supposed to be, then yeah, that would be money in the making. If AJ Styles was to be like, hey, Triple H, I want to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling to take on David Finlay and see if he's a good Bullet Club leader, that would be money. Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd is not money. It's not. And I wish somebody can sort of change my perspective. I was gonna be like, change my mind. I should host a daily thing to change my mind on this or whatever. But if someone could just change my perspective of how Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd is money, and I'm talking about 2025 Kenny Omega, not the cleaner Kenny Omega, not the early years of AEW Kenny Omega, because that's the past. What has he done lately? He hasn't done much of anything because of that life-threatening illness, and then to be thrust back into the scene as if none of that happened, as if none of that is taken into consideration, which, yes, he does mention it in this press conference, into consideration at all. And it's like, if you don't even know how your stomach is when you are going to be in this match, then why the fuck are you booked? Why are you putting yourself in danger when you could have had the most safest match, a tag match of you and Tanahashi versus the Young Bucks? That would have been the most safest match. You wouldn't have to do anything. It would have been a trial run to make sure that your stomach was at 100%, but no, you went for the Madman, the one who's very, very violent. Why? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to wrap it up here because that is my reaction. That is all of my thoughts. And I really hope that after January 5th, we have Gabe Kidd coming out as the winner. And I do hope that Gabe Kidd resigns with New Japan Pro Wrestling, because I am tired of Tony Khan just buying whoever he wants. And it's like, at first, wrestling fans didn't want that. Wrestling fans didn't want WWE to become this monopoly where people go there and basically like get all the money that they want and have a good career. Like in WWE, you're able to have a good career now. But nobody really wanted that when Vince was in power. Nobody wanted WWE to be a monopoly. But all of a sudden, it is okay for AEW to become a monopoly and buy whoever the hell they want, and then they sit in catering or they sit at home or they don't do shit. And then you're like, yay, AEW is still the best. And then when wrestlers want their release, it's like, they never been good. So, just give them their release. Like, this is the toxicity that Tony Khan has cultivated, but as much as we call it out, he still wants to be like, oh, it's not happening. Also, I thought people didn't want wrestling to be a monopoly, meaning AEW, because it would just strangle all of the wrestlers on the indies, and it will cause so much different rates here and there, arguments, all this kind of stuff, because AEW changed the game. AEW changed the game in the economic sense, where wrestlers are overpaid to not do much. Wrestlers are overpaid to not really tell stories and just go week to week to week and think that it is okay while stuff is failing and not getting up there. So it changes everything. So that's what AEW did. It changed the landscape of professional wrestling by becoming a monopoly and buying wrestlers from other organizations that you would call a friend, and you would be like, oh yeah, we're in a partnership. Now, there are certain ways that you can offer other wrestlers of the partnership. Now, there are other ways that can be conducted to where if a wrestler from the company you are in a partnership with wants to go over to that side, there are ethical ways to get them. Not no Will Ospreay way of signing an AEW contract in an AEW ring while you're still under New Japan contract. That still bothers me, because to me that is very, very unethical. Now, I have ranted long enough on this video and other thoughts of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Just keep in mind that I will always be passionate about New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling is always, always, always special. But Tony Khan is proving to be a leech that needs to stay away from wrestling because it's not working. And then to have an EVP like Kenny Omega to just say nonsense and believe in it and be like, bro, Like, how are you just not acknowledging the past like that? And creating a match that is not money. It really isn't. And I really hope, like I said, January 5th, we have Gabe Kidd as the winner. And he re-signs with New Japan Pro Wrestling because he's going to get lost in the shuffle in AEW. And AEW is not improving. So there's no point for that. He's going to be miserable. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it out, leave a comment on Spotify, or leave a comment on youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast, or leave a comment on marieshadows.substack.com. All of these podcast episodes are free, by the way. They are not behind a paywall, and they are available on my Substack newsletter, which is free, and you should sign up to it, because who doesn't want free extra wrestling content? Spotify, follow the Spotify channel because that helps out greatly. And you will never miss a notification when it goes live, like a new episode. And the same thing goes for YouTube. YouTube.com/Square Circle Podcast. The cool thing about the YouTube channel is that you can hit that subscribe button for free, which helps me out. You can hit that like button as well, and you can also leave a comment. The more comments that you leave, the more likes that you leave, it goes into the algorithm and it goes into the YouTube atmosphere, and we could get more wrestling fans to talk about this topic and maybe tell me that I'm wrong, because 9 times out of 10, that's what wrestling fans do. They tell me that I'm wrong. And over on the Substack side of things, the free wrestling newsletter, if you guys sign up, it is totally free. These videos and audio and everything wrestling goes directly to the inbox. And then when you download the app, you guys will get to join me for the live streams that will be starting soon. And if all that sounds fun, good, all things I have mentioned will be down in the description below and also in the pinned comment. I want to say thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I love each and every one of you guys. And you have been listening to an episode of the Square Circle Podcast. We are now in year 6, season 6. And this is your host, Marie Shadows. And I'll see you guys on the next one.